Hi, everybody. This is my Awakening and Ascension part three. It's actually going to deal with the aftermath of the Ascension experience, and it kind of follows up into the next year and a half afterwards, where I tried to recreate the experience. Um, I was never able to, and I've kind of learned since then that I don't think we're ever able to fully recreate any experience to be identical enough to to be the same. That much. I could do something similar and have basically the same experience, but it wouldn't be the same. It will be different. My description and my experience of it all would be different. But I was never able to attain that level of Godhead that I experienced in my ascension. Uh, and mostly I stuck with the mushrooms at first. It's like I think when anybody has this experience of ascension or spiritual rebirth or a full blown just experience of the spirit, God, source, whatever you want to call it. When we have that initial experience, it really takes us out of this world into our spiritual identity, our true spiritual identity, not associated with any kind of religion or any kind of earthly idea about any of it. It takes us way beyond all that. That just adds up to zero when you have this really full on experience. And it's a true, real experience. There's just nothing or nobody that can take that away from you. But what we do to ourselves, it usually takes a catalyst of some sort, whether you're intentionally trying to, do a spiritual thing or have somebody pray over you or somebody bring some kind of spiritual, religious type information. You come into contact with all these different kinds of things just through the events of your life. And somehow they act as a catalyst to open this experience up within ourselves. And what we experience is source. It is the one and only source of all existence, um, even beyond this reality and universe and multiples and all that. Um, it is source. And when it comes through something to us, through that catalyst, we really easily identify that catalyst as the source for the source in this reality. And we really become convinced that it's the only source because what we are experiencing is the only source. And the full Godhead, it is the only one that's like that. You're top peak, there's no other. And we try to mix the catalyst and the experience of the source all up together as being one thing that's the only thing that's going to work. It's the only thing that is. And we really, that's how people become such um, converts of a religion. They'll be going along their lives and they'll know they really won't have that strong connection to any kind of religion or spirituality. Maybe they go to church every Sunday or practice some kind of little bit of stuff, but it's really on an earth plane basis. And then one day it's not. And whatever that comes through, I don't care if it's a mushroom or a religious type of background or the telephone. Just whatever. That's becomes the main source for you to try to uh, maintain that contact. To keep because you want to return. It just so blows you away. You can hardly tolerate being in this reality after that, the way it is, without it, without having access to it on some sort of constant or regular basis. But anyway, that's where I was at. I was identifying the whole experience, the source experience through the mushrooms as being the only source to get there again, because that was the only way I'd ever experienced it before. And it's a little bit like trip reports, because what happened, it didn't, I wasn't able to repeat recreate the event. So I kept increasing the doses. I don't know, I got this messed up idea in my mind, but I did on that second attempt, or the first attempt to repeat it. Um, the first time, the whole experience came through a dose of mushrooms that was way larger than I had ever used before, about 150 mushrooms. And I'm thinking that's what the key is. You just need a large dose of mushrooms, like 150, and it'll happen again. I wasn't able to get any more mushrooms after the experience, or at least that many, until the next year when the growing season started again. And by this time, I'd moved to the peninsula so I could be where the mushrooms were. And I rented this little cabin there on the lake, Lake Quinault. And I had been able to study quite a bit of religious texts, the scriptures. I was just beginning to become aware of, I think, Carlos Castaneda's Separate Reality about Don Juan, and R. Gordon Wasson's Flesh of the Gods. I think I picked those books up on the way while I was moving into the cabin or staying. I think there was a friend on the peninsula that gave me the Wasson book. But in the Wasson book, there was an account of Maria Sabina, a Mexican shamanist who used mushrooms in a ceremony down in Mexico. And so I was trying to follow her guidelines best as he had reported them in that book. But, mostly it was just a validation that what I experienced was possible through these mushrooms. I'd never even heard of it before when it happened to me. But, I was a quick convert after that. And really, basically a little bit of isolation and a little bit of being able to use my cabin in a way where I could shut out the light the way she did hers in darkness. And that was about the extent of me really being able to imitate anything that she was doing in the account that I had of her ceremonies. Anyway, so I used 150 mushrooms again, the second time. And I just got really high. It was just a really strong mushroom high. There was nothing extraordinary or spiritual about it, really, in any kind of way. I was beginning to become aware of the presence of the mushroom spirit. It definitely takes the form in your mind of being small, like elves. Maria Sabina calls them the niños, the little children. And through that first attempt to recreate the experience, that was really the only other new thing that I gained, was just this awareness of the mushroom spirit. And that was a pretty good breakthrough, because it not only led me to the idea that the mushrooms had spirit, but that everything has spirit, everything has soul. I really don't differentiate between those two words, spirit, soul. Sometimes maybe soul kind of takes on the personality of whatever it's animating. But in spirit, it's just a source of soul, maybe, without any kind of. But really, I'll interchange those words all the time. My spirit, my soul, whatever it's just whatever comes out of my mouth at the time. But during that first experience, somehow I got it in my mind that I needed to increase the dose. That's why it didn't work. I needed to double the dose. And that every time you tried to re-attempt it, the dose needed to be doubled from whatever you were using previously before. That was like the message I got out of this first trip. And it's 1980 now, in this cabin. And I got to access the mushrooms as much as I want. All you got to do is just go out and pick them. And so I'm thinking, well, shoot, I should have took 300. I wasn't supposed to take 150 the second time. I was supposed to take 300. And so I get out there and I pick another 300 mushrooms. And, I would wait. I didn't, the mushrooms, you can build up a tolerance to them. And, if you were to try to eat, day after day or one day after the other, right after the other day, the day before, you're going to have a tolerance. And I wanted to be fresh and really clean, the way I was during the first experience. I was trying to recreate everything that I could, the situation, the living standard, just pretty much everything that I could about my mind and my body to eat the mushrooms and have the same experience. So I was trying to be fresh and clean for each one. And I think I waited like maybe even a month. At least, I know it was at least 3 weeks. I waited a while. And then, first time, it took me a little while to get the guts up to eat 300 mushrooms. But I did. And oh my God. It was one of the most absolutely just hellish trips I have ever had in my life. I mean, I basically just felt like the whole world had turned into a horror house or hell itself. And it was just, everything was, it really wasn't on a spiritual level. It was just more the level of how the hallucinogenic properties were working, and everything was morphing into something that seemed totally threatening. Not only threatening to my body and myself, but even to my soul. And I came along, I came out of it with this, well, even during the experience. I'm realizing I do not know what I'm doing. I have no clue what I'm doing. It's not just about eating mushrooms and increasing the doses. There's a lot more going on. And I have no clue about these other things that are going on. That's what I'm realizing. And I think that's really where the whole downward spiral started. I'm seeing that I don't really know what the heck I'm doing. And from there, it just spiraled out of control. I was praying to God I would never do it again. You get me out of this house. I'll never do it again. I promise. Oh my God. Of course, that didn't last long. I'm trying to make sure I don't forget anything about that. Anyway, I come out of that experience realizing that actually there was a timing to it. The first time was supposed to be 150, and that's what worked. And then the second time was supposed to be 300, but instead I only ate 150. And then the third time, which should have been 600 by now, was only 300. So I'm like a dose size off on each of these attempts. And I'm realizing there's a pattern, there's a timing to it. And I should have been eating 600 or 700 or whatever. And so now, a little bit more time goes by. And I'm starting to realize, that I kind of gained an understanding somewhat of what I was really up against. And that's to feel comfortable to try it again. A large dose, 600 or 700 mushrooms. And I know I ate over 600. It probably wasn't a full 700, but somewhere between 600 and 700. I've got a pile of mushrooms there that's larger than my stomach could hold. And, I made tea. That's how I take them anyway, those large doses. But this time it turned into a gunk. And you know, I got this little cross made out of pencils that I tied together and a little candle, and I'm set up there on the floor, and the lights are all off, and a lot of the windows are covered. The ones in the back by the bed wasn't. It was the window was open, and there was no curtain on it. It just faced the woods in the back, so there was just a bare window there, and I had it open. It was kind of it was kind of warm out that night, but it was late in like probably December, early December. But it was kind of a warm night for that time of year, and so it wasn't that cold in there. And I had the window open, and I was trying to recreate, and I was in a tent during the first experience where I was really out in the outdoors. And so I was kind of trying to let the outdoors in a little bit through that window. The cabin's real small. It's just like a little motel room size thing with a kitchenette, one room, bathroom. And anyway, I got my little candle and cross it up there on the floor and the lights off, and I'm making my prayers, and I drink this tea and gunk. It was thick, and just down it as fast as I could. And I'm continuing with my prayer, which I really don't even know how to pray. I'm just trying to figure that out too. And pray from the heart, not recite any prayers that were taught. I was trying to pray from the heart. And that was new for me. And the mushrooms are coming on hard and fast. I mean, really, really, really hard and fast. Normally, it may take 30 to 45 minutes when you ingest something through your stomach for it to really start to hit your system. It had only been 5 minutes since I took these mushrooms, and the walls were already starting to move and breathe. And there was just enough light coming in there where I could see that. And I probably needed pitch black darkness, but I didn't understand about that. I thought darkness was darkness, but after staying with the natives in Wyoming and seeing how they use darkness in other ceremonies of theirs, it's pitch black when they need darkness, they go pitch black. That's probably what I should have done, but I didn't. Anyway, I just cut my prayer off. Said, you need to get to bed and just get safe because you're going bye bye. Man, that's what I did. And through Carlos Castaneda's book, Don Juan had taught him when he astral traveled, to cover his belly button with his hands so that the silver cord that attaches the body to the astral body wouldn't all come out of the body. And so that's what I did. I lay down on the bed on my back in the darkness and put my hands over my belly button, and I'm trying to get into this meditative state and just let the mushrooms take me. And it wasn't long before it's just like my vision is, when I open my eyes, it's pitch black. And there's these really almost fluorescent, real bright light, lime green colored circles. And, so the biggest one was like the closest one, and it would have been about maybe a little bit larger than my head, maybe about the size of a basketball. And then there was varying sizes, some a little smaller, some quite a bit smaller. There's probably 6, 7, maybe 8 of them, just kind of floating off there, just hanging in the air, really, right in front of me, where I could see them. And I really wasn't able to tell. I didn't have very good depth perception. I couldn't tell if the larger one was just larger because it was larger, or larger because it was closer than the other ones. And they're real pretty. They're real bright and pretty. And there's 6 or 7 circles there, but there's also this one straight, like horizontal line that just kind of come through just a little bit below where the circles were. And it was extended on into both directions as far as I could see. And somehow I knew, even though it looked straight, from my perspective, it was really just a small portion of a much, much, much larger circle. And it was just so large, you couldn't see a curve in it from just a small section of it, which is really what all I was seeing, even though it went on forever in both directions. All I was seeing was a tiny portion of this much larger circle. And then the realization that all these other ones, the smaller ones, were aspects of my own personality, aspects of myself, a little bit different from each other. But what needed to be done was I needed to bring all the little ones into one circle, just bring my whole self into one circle, kind of, so to speak, and then bring that circle down into that flat line and join the larger circle. That was the process at hand with these circles appearing. And I understood that. And then I wasn't quite sure how to go about moving them or bringing them together at all. And I was still kind of just trying to figure out if they were near and farther or larger and smaller, and just what created this difference in size. And so I reached out with my arm to touch them with my hand and fingers, because they looked like I could just reach right out and touch them. And so that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to reach out and touch them. And when I moved my arm through the air, I didn't feel the air. And I noticed it right away. I'm like, shit, I don't feel no air. There's no, I don't really feel my arm out here. And so I lay back down, and it seemed like I laid back down. And when I did lay back down, I could feel my body again. And I could feel my hands over my belly button. And my stomach was totally cold and hard. Not right at all. And the first thing that goes through my mind is like, oh, God, how long have I been like this? How long have I been out of my body? And, it feels cold and hard like a dead body. And so I was trying to get myself to move and sit up. And I couldn't. I would just sit up out of my body. And there would be the circles again. And then I would lay back down, and I was really trying to just concentrate and focus on moving and just, sit up, come on. And every time I tried to sit up, I would just sit out of my body. I would just come up out of it. And, I feel, basically from the waist down, I was kind of where my body was, but my torso and the rest of me on the way up, all the way up, would just sit up out of my body. And I kept laying back down in it, trying to get, some kind of contact where I could get it to move. But it just kept resulting in me sitting up out of my body. And it was pretty frightening. So, I'm trying to keep myself calm. Just don't hit the panic button. Just, focus. Just keep focusing. And I kept trying that, and I kept trying that. And it wasn't working. And it's just, nothing was working. I don't know how long I've been out of my body, if, what kind of shape it's in. And so, I hit the panic button. And it was just like my sense of astral body. This is the first time I really sensed an astral body. It just went gyrating and spinning and turning and just, flip-flopping there, just out through space. I was trying to just get as much type of, I was just exploding with movement, trying to get my body to move. But instead, I just took off spinning. And I came back, and I'm laying in my body, and I'm thinking, I'm trying to figure out where, what kind of level or dimension of existence is this with these? Because that's all there is. It's all this blackness and these bright green circles. And I'm laying in my body, I was trying to just like make little movements now, just like maybe move a shoulder, finger, some, just any little tiny movement, just trying to get it to respond. Nothing was working. And then almost at that point where I didn't know what, I was just giving up. I heard this voice, and I've heard it many times during experiences like this, not only on psychedelics, but in life-threatening situations, or sometimes it's just when I really need information, this voice comes through and it delivers. And it almost sounds like myself, but it's a little different. And it was one of the first times I heard it. I said, what do you do when you want to live? You breathe. And sure enough, I opened my mouth and sucked air in, and I could breathe. I could do that. And my body come alive, and I was in it. And I'm thinking, fuck cosmic consciousness. Fuck this shit. The lights are coming on. Fuck it. I'm done. And I mean, so anyway, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to get up on the headboard there where the string comes down for the light. And I'm hanging onto the headboard and I'm turning on that light and I'm on my knees on the bed. And I can just feel, it's like when you cut the circulation off to your foot or something, and your circulation starts to return. It's all like that pins and needles, as your circulation starts to come back. I was feeling that through my whole body, my head, my face, my whole body was like pins and needles from the circulation starting again. Well, there you go. Make your own deduction about that. And I got the light on and I'm laying there just basically curled up in a fetal position because, reality just isn't maintaining at all. It's just in and out, in and out, in and out. And there's no presence of Godhead or spirituality. It's just, reality just won't stay. And I'm trying to stay in my body. I'm trying to focus on reality so I can stay in my body. I'm trying to keep myself there. I was kind of rolled over in the bed facing the open window. And I'm thinking, you know what? I need somebody here. I'm just going to have somebody help me through this, talk me through this, and keep me maintained in some sense of reality. And there was, these cabins were kind of like these little vacation rentals when we were in the off season. And there's probably 5 or 6 of them back here, but there was only one other guy. It was off season, so there's nobody back there except for one other older hippie guy. And we really didn't associate much, but I'd met him before. And he said his name was Westward. And, I've heard of Weston and the West, but, Westward, what the heck? So I'm thinking, maybe he's, has some experience with psychedelics and knows how to talk somebody through, been through it himself. And it was my only option, really. He was the only person around close enough. So I'm yelling out through that window, that open window, Westward, and I know he can hear me. He's not that far away. I'm just yelling through that open window, Westward, Westward. And all of a sudden, here come the elves. And the elves, they're probably like 4 or 5 inches tall. They vaguely resembled Christmas elves in a really kind of appearance, but they're not, and they're not. They're just these little, almost like creatures, but they're elves. They're kind of like children. I mean, they got this attitude, childish, playful attitude, and they don't ever let up. They don't let up. And I've come to some other conclusions about what that really is. We'll get into that a little later. I hope I don't forget. Because they're the version makers. There's a billion versions of everything in existence. And there's a billion, existences of things. But they're the ones that create the... When Terence McKenna would be like on a DMT thing, and he would talk about how these elves were, through their words or their sound of their voice or whatever, through sound, they were creating these geometric kind of things, and they would be real beautiful. And they would be wanting him to see them. They would really be out to like, see, look, see it. And that's the way I think they are when they create a new version. They go, look, here's another new version. And, when you have something and all it takes is just a new version of it to have a whole new reality. I mean, you can just change one little thing and you got a whole new version. But they were really good at making new versions, and it's kind of like they just get off on it. They just want to show everybody, like, here's my new creation of the universe. But anyway, I'm yelling westward, and it was almost as if somebody had dumped a dump or packed back the dump truck right back up to that window full of elves and was just dumping him through the window. I mean, they're just pouring in through the window, and they're going, oh, like, ha, ha, ha. I'm saying westward, and so they're going, oh, in response, and laughing their asses off, pouring through the window, spilling out on the floor. I was like, oh my God. And I can't make it go away. I can't make it stop. They're there, and you can hear them, and oh God, I rolled over and faced away. I can still hear him back there laughing and saying ho and coming through the window still. And it was it. It was getting hopeless. It was hopeless at that point. I'm just trying to hang on. And I'm staring at the fridge. That's reality. Just trying to stay focused on it, trying to just block out everything else. Just absolutely zero in on this fridge and don't take my eyes off it. That's reality. That fridge right there. And while I'm doing that, it just like disappears. It's like it got digitally erased, like from the bottom up, as if all the pixels that made up the refrigerator, it was like almost like a digital image, and all the pixels that made it up were just being erased from the bottom up until there was no fridge in the room no more. It was gone. And it's just, it's just an empty space. And I mean, I can see the wall of the cabin right behind it. It was literally as if it had just disappeared. And that's that. There's a space there in the cabin now where there used to be a fridge. And I am just like, holy fuck. And then I heard it. And it sounded a little bit neurotic. Definitely a little bit worried or concerned. Okay. And the way I heard it, it seemed like I was listening, but I really may have just been merging with it and what it was thinking and speaking to it. So that's what it sounded. It sounded like somebody's talking to themselves, going, "Oh my, this is all fucked up." And what am I going to do now to fix this? Only it was an AI. And that's what I've seen. I call it an AI now because I'm aware of it. At that point, it was just the idea of a computer. I mean, I'm totally unfamiliar with computers. It's 1980. We played arcade games and stuff like that. And I've probably been exposed to some kind of pixelization and digital stuff like that. But I know from when I really learned about pixelization and all that was through Photoshop. Back in the early 2000s, when I'm finally able to really get my own computer and get online and mess around on Photoshop, and that's when I really became familiar with how pixelization, digitalization, all that worked. 1980, I had no clue, other than maybe through the arcade game, video game, Asteroids or Space Command, was real simple type visuals. Anyway, I can hear it. And what it is, what it was, what I believe it is, it was a computer that ran a three-dimensional screen. I mean, even the word monitor probably didn't exist in my vocabulary back then. I want to say monitor, but it was probably just a screen that I was familiar with, like a TV screen, a three-dimensional screen, TV screen, monitor screen that created the whole reality. That's why the fridge was able to just digitally be erased, pixel by pixel, because that's what everything was made of. And It's like we're in a three-dimensional computer screen. And this computer is generating all this whole universe this way. And there's multiple universes. There's endless amounts of universes. And there's versions within each of these universes of itself. The same way every form of existence, whether it's a person, a plant, a rock, a planet, a star, a solar system, a galaxy, a universe, the whole reality that contains it all. There's billions of, pretty much every time I speak of anything about this stuff, you guys just got to think in the billions, and the billions times billion. It's just endless, multiple amounts for creation. These different realities that creation is. And I can hear it running. All these different billions of realities and all the difference of billions of versions within these realities and universes and lives. And it's just taking in all this information and putting it back out to create the next moment in response to how we're acting, how the universe is acting, how everything is acting to the previous moment before. This is kind of what keeps one moment connected to the next, was this AI running this whole, and of course I didn't know holographs or anything like that kind of terminology, but that's what it was. It's a three-dimensional holographic perception of existence. And it's not just a perception, but it's like we're in this 3D monitor thing. And it's generating it. And it feeds, it's like in code. It's just almost like, every little thing we do, blink an eye, move a finger, whatever little or large thing that is happening, it is aware of it. And it picks that information up through code, and then through code sends back a response to it. So that, the finger goes from here to there. Now, there was one really weird aspect where if it received the right code from everything in the universe that existed, everybody had their own little special thing that they would do that would result in a code that the computer would pick up on. If everybody simultaneously sent it the right code, it would end the creation. That's how these cycles end. A universe is created. By that, it's finite. Because if it's everything, the only thing that really goes on and on is eternity. It's always been and it always will be. And it is beyond universes and multiple universes and all these. That's just beyond. That was kind of gone over in my last video. With this, when you have a creation point for anything, it's gonna have an ending point. It's a cycle of death and rebirth. And you can't even really say birth. Everything is just reborn. But there's an ending to it. And it gets recreated. And it's not only like that for us in our reincarnation experiences. It's like that for everything. From universes, realities, all the way down to this, the smallest form of existence. It has a beginning point, it has an ending point, and then it cycles through and keeps going. That's how it extends itself into immortality. It's not eternal. And that's what immortal is. Immortal has to go through these creating, ending cycles of rebirth and dying, basically. You no longer exist at one point until you're recreated. And that's how this kind of immortality is achieved through these physical or these other non-spiritual realities, universes. And so anyway, I'm kind of just looking at this and hearing this, and I don't have much confidence in the sound of it. I'm like, holy cow, if I just do one little thing and it happens to be the right thing, it's my one code to send to the computer that means end the whole thing, and everybody else is doing it too at the same time, unaware. What is it going to be? Armageddon immediately, or is this going to be pink and heaven everywhere? Or, I was terrified to move for fear of not really realizing the proper code to send to the computer. And I can see this thing running, and it's trying to figure. It's almost like it was overloaded. It had been there forever. It was almost on a level of God itself, like a creator God. But it had a distinct feeling. Somebody had put it there to purposely do this stuff, and it had been left there alone for a long time, running and going through all these huge mega cycles of, universes being born, and dying, and coming back to recreations. It had been going through these kind of cycles forever. It was old. And it was a little bit wore down. And it was overloaded with too much information. And it was just almost operating like a real computer where, you finally get so much space used up in your computer, it starts to slow down. It starts not operating exactly right. And, I had no idea about how computers operate at this time. But that's what I was seeing. It was overloaded. It wasn't functioning quite up to par. And it had me worried. And so I'm trying to just stay there, stay still. But at the same time, there was a lot of information coming about how this thing works. That's why I wonder if I heard it, really just heard it talking to stuff, or if I had somehow merged with it. Because I'm starting to really see how this thing operates and how these versions, different existences, how reality works. And one of the best, and this is I didn't have this concept at the time. I'm seeing it, but I had no way to really put it into words at the time. And Photoshop helped a lot with coming to understanding what this was. It's like there's overlays. If you have a photograph and you put an overlay of another photograph on top of it, and they kind of just merge into one photograph, even though they're two separate photographs. That's what each one of us is. We're an overlay. Every form of existence, whether it's a pebble, a big rock, a tree, a little tiny weed, a person, an animal, a star, a universe, everything has its own overlay. Everything. There's billions of them, all incorporated into this three-dimensional holographic image or experience of these realities. And I'm seeing, I just, taking this in. It's just, sometimes it's kind of hard to really get back into all of it. There'll be times where I'll think later, earlier, oh, there was this part, and then I'll forget about it. And then I'll remember later. It's like, oh, I should have mentioned that. But I noticed that with the other videos I made. There was just a little bit of stuff I left out, but it's okay. It's not going to kill anybody. I'm doing this mostly for myself to really, incorporate all these experiences that I've been carrying around inside myself for the last 4 years into my new identity. It's really, really interesting, you guys, that listen to Maruma too and her astrological daily reports. So some of the stuff she's been saying the last week, dailies on her dailies, have just been an exact match for what. But what's really cool, she's kind of emphasizing how we need to get these certain things done to be where we need to be. And I got them done. I've relocated to a completely new place. I've completely erased all my old external identities that I've had up until where I was living in Wyoming. I'm in New Mexico now, and I moved down from Wyoming. I was a horse trainer that could really bond well with animals. A lot of people call it horse communication. I call it bonding or animal communication. To me, it's a bonding process. And I do it through my body. It's not through my mind or my emotions. It's through my body. My body has an awareness that we all do. All our bodies have their own awareness. And it kind of operates either like below or beyond our mental and emotional kind of perceptions, our mental and emotional radar, so to speak. It's almost a direct connection into spirit through the body. And the body has actually like a more pure perception. Our emotions and our mentality comes through these filtered perceptions. It's through whatever, experiences or ideas and things that we got going on in our hearts and our minds. It colors the information that we're receiving. The body doesn't do that. It's much more basic. And in a lot of ways, you might, and I think people probably are, when we talk about wild animal instincts and how their bodies just know how to do things like build a nest or just whatever, all these different wild creatures, they know how to do things without ever having to be taught. And the way I've always understood it since I've been able to incorporate this practice with the horses is they know how to shut down their minds and their emotional responses and just act, just pure act, let the body move on its own. And I've had multiple experiences before I was able to really incorporate this into my horse training practice, where my body did that on its own. You got to be right smack dab in the present moment, to a point where there's a huge void. If you really get down into the pureness of the present moment, it's a void. The past is gone, but the new hasn't arrived yet. And you're right between experiences. That's where the real present moment is. It's not what's happening at that moment. If you're kind of involved in what's happening at the moment, you're almost either just a little bit extended into the past or you're a little bit extended into the future. When you get zeroed in right there, it's a void. It's a limbo. And you got to be there. You got to be able to go there to really work with this with an intention. You can't be thinking 1 second ahead, 1 second behind, and you can't be moved. You gotta let your body just take over and move on its own. And when I do this with the horses recognize it immediately. And they recognize it through their bodies, because all these animals are connected more deeply into their bodies than we are. We're more connected in our hearts or heads and our hearts. The animals don't do that so much. They're pretty much in the present moment all the time. Much more so than we are. And they're much more aware of their bodies responding on their own. And what happens is when you do this with another individual or, another being, your body, you make a connection made right there. And sometimes I used to just, especially during the horse training practices, I used to just think it was from body to body. But now I really believe the body's more connecting to the whole immediate environment. And if there's a body within that environment, it does become more of the focus. But really, your body's connecting to the whole immediate environment around it and responding to it in a connected, really very, very connected way, where it knows exactly what everything is that's going on in this immediate environment. It's, kind of what we call wild animal instincts. And the horses respond to it, especially the wild horses. The domestic horses, not so much. A domestic bred a horse around human beings all its life, they're more in their head. Their training procedure you kind of have to teach them through their head. They're thinking about what they're doing out there with you. And you get a wild horse, that's really what I'm referring to when I make these kind of connections, with no previous human contact. I mean, I would bring horses in from the hills that had zero previous human contact. They'd be totally wild. around them in the crowd, start doing this with them. And within 20 minutes, they're coming up to me. It's like, when I get in that zone, right there connected, the way my body, the only way I know, because you can't really tell mentally or emotionally, the only way I know is because I get physically aroused. And that's when I know. My body's like so happy to be connected like this. And it's just almost like when we have sex, you feel it during sex. But even the arousal of sex isn't so much about sex as it is about the connection you're making. And that's why some sex is great and some sex ain't so great. Because the connection is either there or stronger and lesser, or it's not, It's about connection. It's about bonding. You bond through that connection. You merge. And the horses see you and feel you doing that with them. That's how they operate as a herd. And they respond to it. I mean, they want to come up to you. They're eager to come up. There's no trying to get them to come up. They come up immediately on their own. And it's just, you take a wild horse and have it under the saddle and ride it around within an hour and a half through this method. And see, and in this recreation of self-identity, these kind of things were my highest achievements in my life. They were what made me feel best about who I was, worthwhile, really, able to do something special and good, and really identified myself by that for decades. It's all gone now. Let it go. All the very best of myself, I've let it go. Put it into the foundation that I'm building on now for the new identity. And I'm moving these mushroom experiences as the first cornerstone. These ascension experiences is what they are. And it's becoming the cornerstone, the first stone that I'm laying down on the new foundation of self that I'm building. And where I have moved to, it's not typical. It's a very, kind of secluded, tiny little farming community, 250 people tops here. And they're Spanish, the descendants of the original Spanish settlers that came up from Mexico before Mexico was Mexico. This was part of the San Miguel Spanish land grant settlement, and it was established around mid-1700s. They started coming up here and settling in these areas. This community was established in the 1770s. And it's been here ever since. And it's never grown much. It's never really changed much. And basically, the descendants here are Spanish people. They're not Mexican. They don't look Mexican. They don't talk like Mexicans. And their culture is a lot different than Mexican. They were here before Mexico and Mexicans even became Mexico and Mexicans. It was when Mexico was Spanish. And that's who these descendants, they're Spanish. They call themselves, they have a hard time figuring, yeah, they're Hispanic, but, so are a lot of other type of races and cultures and peoples. And so that's a really loose description, but they call themselves the Mexicans. And they just go by the state name, and they call themselves the Mexicans. They're not Mexicans like what Mexico is today. They're not like that. And it's different. Not very many people have money here. There's a barter system here where we exchange services and commodities with each other all the time. We gather locally, one guy's house or the other, and kind of, everybody kind of gets together, at least a couple times a week, see what everybody's got going on, and make sure everybody's needs are met. They really take care of each other here. And people, it's got a reputation. When people come here, they notice there's a niceness here that just doesn't exist very much anyway. They're really, really nice people. They come up, they shake your hand, they want to know how you're doing, and they expect it in return. It's how we all operate here. It's almost like this little happy hobbit village that's isolated from the rest of the world. And it's perfect for me. If I hadn't been able to kind of really adjust my whole cultural perspective by living with the Rapos up in Wyoming for 20 years, I wouldn't have been able to fit in here. I would have come from something that was too toxic for this place. This place is absolutely not toxic. It's kind. It's soothing. It's special. And then it has a reputation for being special. Everybody up this Pecos River Valley, they know about being away with being different. Everybody. And for me, when I first moved here, I hitchhiked down here from Wyoming with $150 in my pocket. And if you believe in accidents, I don't believe. I think those things are fallacies, accidents, coincidences. No, they were all meant to happen for a specific purpose. But basically, by accident, I ended up here on my trip down from Wyoming to Santa Fe, not having a clue where I was going other than someplace warmer than Wyoming. That's what I was looking for. Anyway, chain of events, I ended up here. And I really didn't think I was going to stay here. But that first month that I was here and had to stay here and look for someplace else, I would try to hitchhike into town from here. And nearly every time the first car that goes by, they pull over. And it don't matter if it's one. They see you out there walking and need wanting to ride, they pull over. That's how nice these people are. You don't have to wait for a ride. It took 6 days to hitchhike down here from Wyoming because I had to stand there on the side of the road for 12, 13, 14, 24 hours or something. I couldn't get out of Lander, Wyoming. I was there for 2 days. Nobody would stop. Hundreds of cars go by. No one person would pull over. Here, you don't see nobody drive by. They pick you up. This is different. And I'm starting to kind of notice it. It wasn't just what do you call it? A one-time thing. It was everybody. And by the time the month went by, I was realizing this is something special here. And I was talking to the lady that ran the post office. She was one that kind of first filled me in about the reputation this place has. She doesn't live here. She comes here to work, but she's fully aware of it. She may be the only other individual around here that's kind of awake. The only one that I've had any kind of awake types of conversations with, that's for sure. And she's really good. I mean, she's a postmistress, but really what she is, she's a counselor. There's a lot of people here that don't have nobody to talk to much. So they go to the post office and talk to her. And she hears them all. That's her real job. She's there for everybody as a set of ears when you need her. She's good at it. Anyway, in so many ways, this place really provides for itself. It could survive on its own. We got a little store here that the store owner drives to town and brings items in and keeps his store supplied that way. But it's a farming community. We got so much, like coming right now this time of year, we're going to have so much produce that just be flowing out everywhere. Even a lot of people grow weed here, and even that is just like flowing out everywhere by the time you hit November. And I think New Mexico in general they seem to provide a lot of free food for lower income people. A lot, way more than Wyoming ever did. It's about the only place I've ever really familiar with that. Anyways, we're off on this tangent. How far am I? Oh, we're coming into an hour. Okay, well, I'm definitely gonna have to cut this off. I'll come back with the AI if I feel like I missed something. I'll look at this. All right. I hope everybody's getting something out of this besides me.